Well, folks, we're on day 7, I think, now of the French riots. It's been a whole week that country's been on fire. And in that time, it's understandable that some people may have taken their eyes off of the situation in Ukraine. After all, that war doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. But some of you might remember, was it last week, probably the week before, I brought up this bill that Lindsey Graham introduced to essentially compel the U.S. to join the Ukraine war if there's any kind of nuclear disaster or an attack on a nuclear power plant, which is a dead giveaway that they are plotting a false flag on a nuclear power plant as a pretext to get the U.S. into the war even more directly than we already are. I mean, obviously we are on the war, but we don't have ground troops en masse. And so I pointed out way back then, a few days ago, that it would seem that a false flag attack on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, which has been controlled by Russia since March of 2022, I believe, was one of the early things that they captured, and has been supplying electricity to Russian-controlled parts of Ukraine. It is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. I think it's bigger than Chernobyl was. And so obviously, if anything were to happen to it, it would be a disaster. And even beyond the nuclear disaster, the environmental problems, the unpredictability of that, if you remember with Chernobyl, you had these radiation clouds that sort of just lingered over Europe and settled in different places. It wasn't really, you couldn't really choose where all the radiation went. Anyway, it would negatively affect the Russian-controlled parts of Ukraine, because then they would be out of electricity. So Russia has every incentive to defend this power plant, make sure that no harm befalls it. Despite that, though, we are getting reports which seem to contradict that from all of the pro-Ukrainian accounts on Twitter and the pro-Ukrainian media telling us that the Ruskies have, quote, mined the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. They've rigged it to explode. This is a very specific accusation. They're not saying, Russia is going to bomb it, or they're going to blow it up. They're specifically saying the whole place is rigged with explosives, and they could hit the detonator at any time and blow the place sky high. They're saying that over the last few months, Russia has just been sneaking in explosives into this power plant, filling the place to the brim with dynamite. It's all going to go, and so therefore, since it's already rigged to explode, when the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant inevitably blows up and causes a nuclear disaster, everyone will know that Russia did it, because it's already been established, hey, Russia rigged it to blow up. They mined the whole facility. Then the U.S. will have no reason to hesitate. They can jump right into the war and say, damn you, Russia, you caused a nuclear disaster, and we're not going to take it anymore. Putin must be stopped. Prigozhin was a patriot. We will invade Russia. We will overthrow Putin, and we will replace him with Prigozhin the Great. That, I guess, is the plan now. I mean, the plan's changed a lot, but the new plan is false flag attack on Zaporozhye, get U.S. ground troops into Ukraine, overthrow Putin, insert Prigozhin. And their rhetoric around this has only escalated. I was watching to see if maybe this stuff would fade away and they would pull out of this. But no, it seems that this is still a part of the plan if they're still saying it, because they're building the expectation that this has to happen, that it is inevitable. That is what they're projecting. Now, I don't think it'll actually blow up from the inside. That wouldn't make sense, because that would mean that the CIA or the SBU would have had to actually infiltrate and mine the whole place. I don't think that they actually, if they'd done that, I don't think that they would be saying it publicly and just blaming Russia. No, they're going to bomb it or something. They're going to cause some kind of disaster. Because as I already established, the Ruskies have every incentive to stop this from happening. They don't want this at all. They want this power plant functioning. They want it, I mean, it was expensive. It was built by the Soviet Union, and this power plant was a big achievement. Just like that dam that we're told the Ruskies blew up, but nobody bought that, so they kind of stopped saying it, and everyone just, understands, okay, yeah, that was Ukraine that blew up the dam. And the same thing with Nord Stream, and the same thing with the Kerch Strait Bridge. I mean, all of the examples so far in the war of infrastructure, major infrastructure being blown up, has been Ukraine. I'm sure Russia's blown up a couple of crossings over, rivers and such, but they haven't blown up oil pipelines. They haven't blown up power plants. They haven't blown up dams, which have flooded entire valleys and destroyed towns, displacing tens of thousands of people, completely cutting off huge swaths of the country from their irrigation water, which may lead to a famine here in a while because the crops will not be properly irrigated, and so therefore they will not be able to grow as much food as they typically do in Ukraine. What this says to me is that at this point, the authorities in the West have given up on Ukraine being able to win with just aid alone. They're not going to win if we just keep shoveling more military equipment at them. Even our leaders recognize that now. And so, the decision has been made internally to send in NATO troops, that they need more manpower, that Ukrainian soldiers alone are not going to win this war, and so therefore we need some pretext to send our soldiers in, and we're going to dare Putin to start World War III, although we will have started it ourselves, but by start World War III, I mean launch nuclear weapons. Now, technically, if the West blows up the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, they will be the ones opening up with a nuclear attack, because while it is not a nuclear bomb, it will be a nuclear disaster if they blow up this power plant. And so they're just hoping that the Ruskies will decide not to retaliate. I don't like that plan, personally, especially since I remember not too long ago when Russia developed the hypersonic missile. Their animation that they showed was demonstrating, their example that they gave was how long it would take for a hypersonic nuclear-tipped missile to go from Russia all the way to Mar-a-Lago, which is, only a couple hours away from where I am. Well, it's longer than that. I couldn't get there in 2 hours, but it's not. I mean, if I got a call, let's just say in the morning, and someone said, "Hey, and I don't know, I had some business in Palm Beach. Like I could make it there. I'd be there the same day. It's not far away. In fact, it makes me feel a little uncomfortable just knowing, hey, if I were in Palm Beach, there's a chance that World War III might kick off and Russia launches a nuke at my exact location because, of course, that's where Trump lives. This was when Trump was president, though, so maybe these days, since Trump is no longer president, Russia would not target Mar-a-Lago, but I'm sure they'd target other parts of Florida. They got a lot of nukes. They have, I believe, more nukes than any other country on the planet. They've got plenty. They don't need to waste them all on New York and D.C. and L.A. and Chicago. They got plenty for the rest of us. They can blow up Miami and Dallas and St. Louis and all that. That'll all, even if the place I am in, even if I don't get directly nuked, the fallout, the nuclear winter, the displaced populations coming into our relatively undestroyed community. There's no way that a nuclear war doesn't destroy our society. Yet that is exactly what they are daring Putin to do. They've been daring him to do it for over a year. And they're just going to keep pushing because Putin hasn't pushed back hard enough, apparently. They think that Putin's weak. That's the only reason you'd be doing this. If they were truly afraid of Putin, if they thought Putin was some big threat, they wouldn't be pushing him like this. We wouldn't be on the brink of sending our troops into Ukraine to fight Ruskies in hand-to-hand combat. It was scary enough when they did that in Syria. Now they want to do it in Ukraine, in Russia's Mexico. So, with that said, I will be back here Wednesday, I think. Tomorrow's 4th of July, so I doubt I'll be putting anything up. Probably won't be anything to talk about. So, with that said, I will see you all Wednesday.